Hey guys and gals, Board now back with you, and this is going to be my latest review of The Midnight Club. So this is episode 5, it's called See You Later, full spoilers once again. So halfway through the season now, and this is Herdesh centric sort of episode. He tells the story in the middle, which See You Later, it's more of a sci-fi based story. This is quite a meaty episode. There's quite a lot going on because we get some more advancements with the Honor stuff, also the main stuff with Alunka, a couple of other bits, but I'll return to that at the end. But first of all, I will talk about the Adesh stuff, because before we get his story, it's actually a significant episode for him before that, because it's a year on from the doctors telling him then he had almost no time left to live, then his days were numbers. So this becomes a big celebration for the gang. They're all there on the beach. They're toasting the fact that, yeah, he's still alive. He's defying the odds. And they're having a big beach party. They get high. And sometimes when characters get high in these sorts of things, it can get a bit jarring and annoying, some of like the antics and humour. But this worked well, partly because they use it later on when Alonka actually started to see spooky shit. Them actually chips in with, I think you're just seeing things because you're high. Desh has a bit of a thing for Nansky, and Nansky seems to be into him back. Nansky seems a bit down in the episode. We find out that she's a manic depressive, so we find a little bit more out about Nansky. It's like a sci-fi story about like time and stuff. So I'll dive into that because it's a pretty fun story. At first it seemed kind of baffling and I couldn't really see where it was going, where some of it had to do with other bits, but you could see more as it went along, and it's a fun sort of sci-fi futuristic type story. So Adesh, the actor, gets to play this nerdy like video game designer, and he has a crush on this girl Becky, and Becky, I think, was played by the Nansky actress. Looks similar anyway. And she says, he asks her out, she says, sorry, I'm in a long-term relationship, or we just made it official. But I'm Becky, nice to meet you. And that comes back into play later on, like a game store, and we hear that Luke, his name is in the story, is like this hotshot, really talented video programmer, designer. And he bumps into this well-known video games program designer in the store. And he offers him the opportunity to crack this really advanced new game. And he offers him the chance where, if you crack it, I'll give you like half of or a percentage of what I would earn from it. So that becomes the whole thing. And at one point he's introduced to the designer's girlfriend, who, now bear with me because she's also Asian, and I'm not making a big deal of this. I just thought it was a little coincidental that Luke had a crush on Becky, who was Asian, and then this other woman is Asian. So I want to make that clear. It's not like a racist sort of thing. I just thought it was a little bit of a coincidence. But then the story neatly explains that later on. Shows them this sort of like spacecraft, but they've got like a telescope. And Luke has this moment where he passes out because we find out he's got a weaker heart. But where this all leads is that Becky, and it turns out, is one day going to be president. And he's already got like these rich sort of connections in office. and he starts having an affair with the girlfriend of the designer. I think Greg's the designer name. Becky, not in a romantic way, but she starts getting close to Luke again because she's like confiding in him over what's happening. But we all find out that then this is all set up, and this explains the whole thing. We find out that his girlfriend has been getting close to Becky from the future, and Luke is actually the younger version of the game's designer. So their whole plot is because the political guy, the one who's seeing Becky, this is all confusing when I'm explaining it, but he has knowledge in the future of things that will basically end the world. So their whole plot is to cut this off before it happens. And Luke's obviously, because Luke's whole thing is, well, if I just don't crack the game, like if I just don't solve the puzzle, then this stuff won't happen anyway. But she's telling him, no, it's not that simple. We've got to actually stop the person who's gonna make this all happen. Because the whole idea is then he becomes a bit of a tyrant in office and shit starts to happen. So once they started digging into this and having fun with it, I got more into the story. But it sort of ends quite tragic because Becky gets caught in the crosshairs, as in younger Becky. And yeah, because they're trying to like kill the future president. And Luke tries to stop it because he disagrees with it. He throws himself in front of the car, and Becky ends up getting caught in the crosshairs, and she gets run over and like tragically killed. So I mean, pretty confusing, but it's a bittersweet sort of ending because it does actually have an effect which saves the world in the future, because although he still becomes president, this other guy, that experience changes him for the rest of his life. So he actually becomes a good president. He doesn't go on to do these end of the world tyrant sort of things. So it's a bittersweet ending to the story where Becky tragically dies, younger Becky, but at least the future changes. At least he doesn't go on to do these awful things which leads to the end of the world. So it's a pretty cool story, and it pays off later because obviously part of this from Adesh's point of view is linked to his feelings that he has for Nancy. So it's almost like Becky is Nansky, and they do have a kiss at the end. You get like quite a sentimental scene where Nancy's like, you know, I think you should get the girl, and that's to do with what he says earlier. Because that sort of took me off guard when he's saying that to her on the beach later, when he just says, I wish I got the girl type thing. And it's all to do with regrets that these characters have of maybe they're in their final days and they didn't get to do such and such. So it's pretty sweet stuff that they get a kiss. So returning to the Honor and Alonka stuff. First of all, Alonka gets a designer wig in this episode, and that's from Shari. I'm not quite sure, but I figured out that's the name of the practical liar, the one with the rich parents. So that's a nice scene, because she says, my mum's working on a film with this famous actress, and or not a famous, but a famous wig designer, and so she got her to send her in the post a designer wig, and she also got one for Alunka. And that's a nice little touch. That's a nice little character beat for her, because she's picked up on then Alonka is missing having hair, so she got her like a nice wig. So that was a nice moment, a nice character moment for her. But Alunka, the meaty stuff is then she starts to learn more about Honor and about the history of this place. So Honor obviously passed out at the end of the last episode. We thought maybe she was going to die. In the end, like, Alonka recovers her with mouth to mouth, and she learns later on then well, it was an overdose, but she learned later on that she does have overdoses. Like, she has a drug addiction, which Alonka didn't know, and she's talking to the Hevalaga character, who, by the way, wasn't in Adesh's story, so that's the first time she hasn't played someone in the story. But yeah, Alonka is mad with her for not telling her, so this is going to lead to even more friction and maybe Alonka not trusting that character even more. But we also get a bit of backstory about the Institute and about Julia, and we find out that Julia had a diary, then she was the founding member of the Midnight Club, and we also learned that there was sort of a coven or a cult of witches, like, years ago at this institute, and that they were doing like a blood ritual, like a sacrifice to try and give like everlasting life or to make your life last longer, and that's obviously to do with these characters wanting to prolong their life, but something went horribly wrong and it sort of all led to like Julia James discovering and forming the Midnight Club, and she's got obviously the diaries, and we see that at the end there's quite a moving tender scene where Onna opens up to Alonka, and Alonka, as she's like consoling her, actually notices like the diary. So pretty solid stuff really with that side of things, the Alonka plot, and I enjoyed this episode. I did like the sci-fi story, Adesh's sci-fi story, quite a lot. So I would say this is maybe one of my favourite episodes so far. But that's episode 5 review of the Midnight Club. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've been watching this along, I should return with episode 6 in a couple of days. That review. Also, if you've read the book, then let me know how you feel this version matches up with that. But I'll be back with more soon. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.